Jonas Kade, sergeant of the EECV's First Lights Shore team, had never thought he'd learn patience from a thing that didn't breathe. The reef was a lattice of black metal and pale glass, grown around Valian's fault lines, an architecture that sang when the tides shifted. We'd been sent to hold the extraction point at Reefmouth long enough for the harvest barges to clear. Short mission, small margin, big consequence. The reef's surface glittered under a wet sky as the barges boiled like a slow storm out on the inlet. Jonas had a rifle, 2 arc charges, and 12 hands he trusted with their lives. The enemy, call them the Yelra, came not as infantry, but as tides, long sinuous plates that flowed across the reef and adjusted their approach as if reading the wind. They did not roar, they listened. If you let them, they'd learn the math of you and unmake your angles. Jonas planted mirror ticks along the low flats, small spoons of polished alloy set to throw heat signatures into the wrong places. Make them count, his lieutenant said. Make every correction cost time. They came like concentrations of thought given metal. Their forward plates breathed phosphor blue. They tested the mirrors and smiled in the way predators smile when the prey misreads the alert. A drone took a false trace and dove. A barge's thruster flicked. The Yelra adjusted. The reef spoke back in low chords Jonas felt against his teeth. He moved with them, short staccato valleys, then pause, then a shove that broke the rhythm. A skimmer got a pellet in the intake and bled flame. For a minute, the world was as Jonas liked it, numbers that bent to stubborn hands. Then the Yelra shifted from correction to concentration. A wedge formed. Their officer, a braided arc of living filigree, stepped forward and carried a hush about it. The first cut she made found armor and taught breath to count. Jonas didn't step back because the math needed one more term. He stepped forward into the seam. Close as a different grammar. Elbow, press, twist. He felt the reef under his boots, felt the tides pull on his wrists. He used the mast of a broken tower like a lever and turned a calm angle into a dead one. When the officer went heavy, the world took a small, honest step towards staying alive. 2 minutes came on the net, thin and impossible. The barges would clear if the line held. Jonas's squad bled meters to the rhythm of the convoy, one for 10 seconds, another for 20. The mirror ticks dimmed, the Yelra corrected, and then, slowly, subtracted themselves. From the edge of his vision, Jonas saw not a face, but a shining shard of the officer's carapace tumble and stop near his boot. He picked it up and slid it into his pocket. It chimed, responding to his heat the way a bell answers a soft mallet. He kept it. Pride, he thought later, wasn't loud. It was the way hands stopped shaking. The Yelra officer's view. They called her Ssi'van within the reef's braided chorus, and her species measured time in the change of harmonics. Humans are loud, blunt things, fulcrums of force that require pruning. Ssi'van had seen species fold under correction before. Their race respected efficient systems. When the first light's beacon pulsed across Valian's dusk, she offered the reef a mirror. Humans came close and raised instruments that sent the reef thinking. Ssi'van learned the pattern, and in her quiet way, she advised the tide on minimal interference. She did not wish them harm, she wished balance. But the reef listened in old ways and found Janus's echo, sharp instructions about simplification threaded into the songs the human beacon had taught. The reef, with its slow mind, began to weigh the cost of noise. When the human sergeant stepped into the seam, Ssi'van felt the reef's chord respond like a held breath. She had not intended the officer to fall. She did not rejoice. Pleasure was not shaped that way. But the reef's ledger updated. Something in her braided currents hummed like regret. She transmitted a small pulse, a harmony for the returned shard, and watched the human take it like an offered token. In the exchange, she caught a brief image of human stubbornness that made the reef's math shift infinitesimally. They retreated. Jonas watched the barges climb the lift lines and then wrote "Pass held" across the locker door in chalk because ritual steadied him the way muscle steadied a bone. Ssi'van folded her filaments and sang a slow cadence into the reef that said, in the closest approximation her race had for it, "We will remember this variance." Aftermath and stinger. Jonas pocketed the carapace shard. He had a piece of an alien's calibration in his palm and the knowledge that they had not come to kill, but to measure. The reef had adjusted its ledger, and for one small margin, let humans close a gap in generational time. Back aboard First Light, the crew cataloged the exchange. Commander notes were crisp. Chief Engineer Malik wanted to analyze the shard. First Officer Rhett proposed adding the Yelra's response pattern into the directive log as a clause about intentional complexity. Ssi'van swam the reef's inner reaches and fed the human pulse into the archive lattices. The reef's lights blinked like stars being rewritten. Somewhere in the dark, the Janus echo still pulsed, an old sharp tooth in a long jaw. The reef had learned a small counterpoint. Jonas slept poorly that night, the shard warm in his pocket. He dreamed of tides. Next week, the First Light follows a tracer of Janus to a place called Janus 12, a decision point where the lessons humans taught the void could come back like a debt called in.